In this video, we're going to look at performing logical operations on our data using the if function. Zara is now ready to actually start doing her reconciliation. And coming onto the Recon Analysis tab, you'll notice that there's quite a big difference between what the supplier statement is saying and what Zara's data is saying. Now she needs to work out what's causing that difference or correct the error if that's the reason. So we're going to come and have a look at our supplier invoice statement. And you'll notice that there have been some credits, but those credits are showing up as positive amounts, where really we should be subtracting them from the amount paid. So we need a calculation that will check if the type is credit, and if it is, multiply the amount by -1. Before we get into this example, though, let's look at a slightly simpler example of the if statement. So coming into our invoice report, the first thing Zara is going to do is work out if an invoice is overdue or not. And we're going to do this using our if function. So clicking into M5, we're going to type equals if and open our bracket. The first thing the if wants is a logical test. This is where you compare two values using a logical operator. So for example, I'm going to check if my payment date is greater than or bigger than my due date. That is an example of a logical test. A logical test must always use a logical operator. There are 6 you can choose from: equals, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. The logical test will always return either true or false. After you've put it in, type a comma, and now you need to put what you want to happen if it returns true. So if my payment date is greater than my due date, I want to see a yes in that cell, and I put it in double quotes because it's text. Then I type another comma, and the last argument the if wants is what I want to do if it's false. Well, I just want to leave the cell empty, but there's a bit of a trick to this. You need to open your double quotes and immediately close them. I'm going to close my bracket for my if so you can see it, and then press enter. And you can see all the overdue invoices have been flagged with a yes. Now that was a very simple example just using text. But instead of the text, I could put any calculation I liked, and it could be quite sophisticated. Let's look at a slightly more interesting example. So we're now going to calculate how many days our invoice is overdue by. Bear in mind, if it's not overdue, we actually want to just put 0. We don't want it being overdue by a negative amount. So again, we're going to need our if statement. We're going to start with our equals if, and this time, our logical test we're going to do slightly differently. We're going to check if the overdue value is equal to nothing. If that is the case, it means it's not overdue. So type my comma and put 0. Then type another comma. If it is overdue, I'm going to need to use my net work days that we looked at in the previous week. So I'm just going to type net work days. My start date is my due date, my finish date is my payment date, and don't forget to include our holidays, which is a named range, so I can just type HOL and tab, close my brackets for my network days, and close my brackets for my if. And when I press enter, it has now calculated the correct overdue days for each invoice. So there were 2 really good examples. Let's go back now and solve Zara's problem. So back in our supplier invoice statement, we're going to come to Q2, the calculation for the dollar amount, and we're going to double click. Now the first part of the calculation is absolutely fine, so we're not going to change that. But what we're going to do is take that result, and if it's a credit, we're going to multiply it by -1. If it's not, we'll just multiply it by 1 so it doesn't change. So after our black bracket, we're going to type our times, then our if, and open our brackets. Our logical test is going to be to check if our type is equal to credit. Then a comma. If it's true, we're going to need to multiply by -1. And a comma. If it isn't, we're just going to multiply by 1. Now close your bracket for your if and press Enter. You'll see all the values have stayed the same except for the 2 credits, which are now negative. Fantastic! Back in our recon analysis, we've made a huge difference and are one step closer to completing it. So just to recap, when you need a calculation that will do different things under different circumstances, probably find that the if will solve your problem.